Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Spidevil, and today I want to talk about World of Warcraft Legion. So I'm going to go ahead and apologize if this is going to be a little bit lengthy for sort of an in-depth view of the current expansion for World of Warcraft. I just really want to share a lot with what I've experienced, being level 110 already, and then questing for a little bit and getting my toes in the water and really kind of embracing what this expansion has, what it has to offer. And you know what? I'm just going to say it flat out. I actually really enjoy this expansion. I don't think it's a bad expansion at all. So far, everything is hitting the right notes. Now, I'm going to go ahead and describe the little details that I really enjoyed about Legion. So, first of all, and let's get this elephant out of the room. The story is absolutely just, like, really hitting home for me. Because now there's this sense of looming danger and fear, and you know, we have a true enemy threat instead of it being like all over the place. And, you know, we know the enemy that we faced before because back in the Burning Crusade, we've dealt with the Legion every now and then. And now they're making a full-scale attack this time, full front, full force. And I do believe they're trying to get their master back into the world of Azeroth. And, you know, with all that being said and done, without giving any spoilers, because I could talk about King Varian Rin, which I'm pretty sure everybody already knows, and Sylvanas. I just don't want to go into that subject because that... Anyway, my point being is that the story is actually really good. It's really coherent and it's flowing pretty well, and more importantly, we have this sense of mystery. We really don't know what's about to happen or what's going on or what the grand plan is, you know, with Illidan being captured and all, and then wanting to bring Sargeras back. Although I do have a theory. I have a thought that they're going to use Illidan's body to be a vessel for Sargeras. So that's my theory. But if you have a theory, go ahead and post it in the comments and then share yours. So, story, absolutely great. Keep it up, guys. I mean, that was... I have never felt this sense of, like, actual, like... How do I put it? How would I describe it? Like remember when Burning Crusade first came out and you came through the Dark Portal and then everything was just like we explore the part of the world, and not like Mr. Pandaria, although yes, it is a different part of the world we do explore, but the difference between Mr. Pandaria and what the Broken Isles is that we really didn't know the enemy on their homeland. Does that make sense? We didn't know the Shah. We didn't get to fight the whole Yasharaj or the Old God or whatever. But here, we've already encountered what the Legion can do back in Burning Crusade. And, this time, we have something to work for. Now we're going to try to kill Gul'dan, which I think there's going to be a Deus Ex somewhere, to be totally honest with you, because it's too easy. It's too easy killing Gul'dan, because if we were able to do that earlier, we would have. But there's going to be something with Gul'dan. I have a feeling. But other than that, play it for yourself. Keep going with the story. It's really good. Now there's a sense of, actual tension and wonder in the expansion with the story. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the map itself. Broken Isles. Broken Isles, I do believe. It's really good. It's really, every single instance has such a unique personality or something to it that everybody really enjoys. Although I am going to say this, and this is totally a biased opinion, so if you agree with me, disagree with me, go ahead. But I think we can all just sit down and just say that nobody liked Highmountain. Highmountain is... Oh god, and that ties into more of the gameplay aspect. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about each instance as a whole. My thing with each of them. So let's go ahead and talk about Stormheim. Let's say Stormheim is actually pretty cool. It's a area where the Vicryll are just nesting, or nesting. I don't think that's the right word for it, but you get my point. That it is their homeland, one of their many homeland versus like Northrend or whatever. There really is sort of a huge culture with Stormheim that I really enjoy, and me being a warrior, a prop warrior, it has to do a lot with the Vicryll and their beliefs and that Valhalla or Valor's Hall, so to speak. So it ties in really well. I don't know how this goes with every other class, but in terms with Stormheim itself and how it affects me as a player, I really get to see what the Vicryll are all about, like their true origins and their and their culture and what they believe and their warrior spirit and, you know, connecting with that. So that's actually a really cool instance. So if you haven't already explored it, or if you already have, then just explore it again. Keep going. Just really dig in there. And, you know, they got dragons and warriors. And it's a very classic, very easy to define area. And I really enjoy the questing there. It's a basic thing. It's not, like, overly detailed, which I'm going to go ahead and jump to that one. Valshara? Yeah, Valshara. The one with the druid homeland. I think, personally, that area is one of my favorite areas because never, like, you see how hard the Legion can hit. Like, you know, this is their home. This is their thing. But then it may not necessarily be the Legion. And again, I'm not going to try to go into, like, details, but, like, there are certain people that you know that just up and die on you. God, it's so hard to talk about this game without, because you need to experience it ultimately. But I'm going to go ahead and give you the skinny. You come into the Druid homeland and there's something wrong with the Cenarius as you come to discover, and it's up to you to try to be able to fix that. And, you know, now you get to learn of this new guy named Xavius versus Malfurion and Xavius, which I didn't know those two interacted. The one thing I will say, which is sort of a bummer on Legion's end, is that they didn't really establish these two. They just told you, oh, hey, these guys are rivals, just to help them out, and it's like, okay, cool, whatever. So you do get to explore that, and there's a lot of stuff with that, you know, without me telling you anything, that goes down. Like something that just completely just like messes with you in one aspect. So there's Valshara. Azuna, yeah, Azuna, if I remember. Asuna? Right, that one instance with Queen Ashara and then being there, one with the Naga and all the like underwater people. You know what? That actually is a pretty cool instance. Why do I keep saying instance? I mean the map. I like that part of the region. It's very clean. It's very straightforward. It gives you a little bit of that highborn culture, just a tad bit. But there's actually one area that does it a little bit better, or it should, because it's their homeland, which being Suramar. But Azuna really shows the aftermath of everything that like had went on during the War of the Ancients, or has to go on with, you know, how Queen Ashara has affected these people, and it really shows. It's pretty straightforward in its questing, so I like that too. Other than that, I personally don't have any complaints. It's the same like Stormheim, except I can connect with Stormheim a little bit more. But Azuna is a very safe map to have. There's a lot to do in there, so there's that. And then with the Legion, you see the little things behind the scenes with what had happened, how both the Highborn of that area and the Legion interacted with each other, and it's pretty cool, so I like that. I do believe there was another, what was it? Oh, okay, so let us talk about Highmountain, okay? Now, without the gameplay aspect, without the numerous quests, okay, and you would think, oh, that's a good thing, like, you have a lot to do, you have a lot of quests. It would be, except for the fact that, you know, there's no, like, break in between. There's nothing, like eye-catching. There's not, and that's not to say that the map itself is a problem. It's just, like, the quests that are tied into it. So let me explain what Highmountain is. Highmountain is a place that the Northern Tauren, I'm going to call them the Northern Taurens, dude, because you have the ones in Kalimdor and there in Highmountain, so I'm going to call them that. The Northern Highmountain Tauren that are just living there, and they've existed for a while. It's their, you know, it's their original home, so to speak, and they're there exploring the mountains. That is their territory versus what the Harpies, versus who else? I know that they do face some Vicrol and one of their borders, so they do have conflicts with Vicrol every now and then. But I think it has to mostly do with Harpies and some of the Legion. Now, this is my only request out of Highmountain. There could have been a little bit more with how Legion affected Highmountain, except we did get a little glimpse of like the Fell Totem guys or whatever, and then you go to that part of the area, and then you fight them, and it's like, whatever. But you don't really see, like, Valshara, let's say, like, that tragedy, that effect that it has. And there's parts of Highmountain that are a little bit, you know, slow. Interesting, but I felt like with such a unique map, they could have just done, like, so much more. But instead, it kind of takes a break away from the Legion story, and I don't really like that much because, remember, the Legion, everybody's there. Every single Legion person is just right there, and they're just going for it, and they're wanting to bring back their master, and you don't really see that in Highmountain, unfortunately. And it really sucks because my thing is that, like, the Taurens are such earth people and they have their own little conflicts. Oh, and I forgot what their other enemies were. I forget what they're called. But there were these, like, underground little minions or whatever like that they're fighting against in the earth or something, and you try to recover these artifacts, which I'll go over here in a moment. Or not even artifacts, but pillars of creation. Anyway, so that tie-in, you know, you don't really see the Legion playing a big part in Highmountain at all. And it's really a shame, too, because I personally would have loved to see that shaking up of their beliefs, villages burning, so to speak, or just knowing that a peaceful race got completely almost wiped out. But we didn't get that, and it's beautiful, but my complaint is it's too beautiful. Does that make sense? Like, it just feels like, wow, really? None of the Legion is just going there? It should tell you that they don't really care that much. Then why should I in return? And let's go ahead and talk about absolutely one of my favorites of that in Valshara, is Suramar. Suramar is the ideal thing that I look for in a game, you know, and with an expansion or whatever. So let me go ahead and explain what Suramar is. It is an area of which the Highborn elves, like the Suramarians or whatever, like the Highborns, back then in the War of the Ancients, like, you get to see a part of their civilization because there's a city that you eventually get to go into via disguise, and I'll go ahead and talk about the city here in a moment. And then you get to see the aftermath of when the Legion invaded, and then they tried to protect themselves, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, now we cut ourselves off, and, you know, anybody that doesn't get magic gets, like, you become Nightfallen, and it really, it's sort of like this indirect thing with Legion. Like, what happens if they're not going to interact with them and they get absolutely decimated as a culture just by the Legion just showing up and wanting to invade, but instead they made deals, and you get to see the elves that are making those said deals with those demons versus the Nightfallen, who are like, and I'm just going to say it the way it is, they're crack addicts, except replace the word crack with mana. They're just in dire need of this magic and mana, and they have to obtain it or they start losing their minds. And you kind of have like a sympathy thing going. You kind of feel like, you know, there was this once benevolent city that just got crushed by the Legion just being there. And granted, keep in mind, the Legion tried to invade Suramar, but they couldn't because of a barrier, and I won't go too much into it, but you'll see it when you get there. And just knowing what would happen if, you know, those really advanced with the magic and everything, these people of just this high caliber, like, there's no denying how powerful each of those elves are, and then they're just in one fell swoop just gone, completely just annihilated. And it's nuts. It's just like, oh, we're not gonna kill everybody, but the ones that are just not involved, they won't even be touched by the Legion. It's just their presence alone makes everybody just, like, you know, want to be with them, you know, cut deals, and the rest of them sort of wither away. So I really like that sort of aspect. What my favorite part about Suramar is going into the city. So let me go ahead and talk about this real quick. When you come into Suramar, there's parts of the map where with like this deadish forest type deal, and then you go into the city. The city is clean. Unbelievably clean. It is ridiculous how clean the city is. Like, it really was kept intact during that Legion invasion with the barrier and all that. And then the Legion some of the Legion inhabit that city. And then when you actually go into it, once you fulfill a quest to get a disguise and actually walk among the city, you ought to see, like, the stuff inside. Like, it's a whole nother culture you get to explore and to witness, and how huge it is. It's bigger, literally it is bigger than Shatra City, or like, it's about the size-ish of Stormwind, but it's a pretty big city with little hooks you can have on top of the buildings, which you can climb up to using a gun that you get from Stormheim. You get to, like, look at the internal affairs of the Sumerians. It's nuts. Like, I really enjoy the fact that this city was kept intact for this moment. Now, for the first time, we actually get to interact with the Highborn, and we haven't seen these dudes since way ages ago. And again, during the War of the Ancients. and how the city is affected by all this. You know, some were outcasts, and you get to work with those outcasts. Some of them are going to like band together and try to go against those Samarians that are with the Legion. And again, you need to play it for yourself. But the city, like when you actually explore the city, you have to also maneuver guards so that they don't get rid of your disguise, and you get to like run about, and you get to see some of the instances already, and it's nuts. It's actually pretty beautiful. And I have to say that Suramar, hang on, and one more other thing I want to go ahead and throw in for Suramar, by the way. Eventually you do get to have a sanctuary, but you sort of build on this sanctuary. So instead of like Dalaran or like how Shatra was, instead of that just serving as a sanctuary type spot, this time you actually build upon it by going to explore the world. You get to open up these ley lines, and it's your job to also give the people that are inhabiting your sanctuary some mana. Well, am I already feeding the addiction or whatever like that? They can't survive without it. And it's not like they're going to die. They just pass out and just don't do anything and give mana, and it's pretty cheap and like whatever. So there's that. And it's a really cool deal. So let's go ahead and talk about the gameplay aspect. The gameplay, so they did give a cleaner design for like weapons and animations and attacks, but they already did that at the pre-patch during Warlords of Draenor before Legion drop, and it actually looks pretty nice. Everything feels like it has an impact, it has a swing, and it's great, and it's so powerful, and it's wonderful. And, you know, it's those little things that keep the game life a little bit going longer. Quests, like I said, so let me go to Highmountain real quick, because I did say I was going to talk about it. Highmountain, again, I like the map, but oh my god, it goes on forever. It just does not stop. It's quest after quest after quest after quest after quest. And again, you would think, oh, well, that's a good thing. At least you get gold and something to do, whatever. But it's not like the fun kind of quests. You got the grinding ones, and I know those will be sprinkled here and there, but it has nothing to do with what's going on. You're taking us out of the action. And quests that go on for too long are just, they're not that fun. I would rather have a chain of quests in like only a small part of it, like it doesn't go on and on and on, and just like in whole different areas of the map. But don't make it like continue and continue and continue. Unlike these other maps that kind of do that, or if they don't at least do that, then they at least give you the chance to embrace the story and things actually hit you, thus giving you purpose. Highmountain, not so much. Like, there's no purpose. There's no reason to why you're doing this or helping somebody's farm or going to look for somebody. It kind of smelled like Mr. Pandaria for a second. And there was a little bit of that. And again, I appreciate the culture, but at least make it relevant to what's going on in the world. Except for that one in the coastal area with the Fel Totem. And that was weird. That was really weird for me. And again, so hang on, I'm just thinking of like me saying this. One thing I did forget to mention, like with the hooks and Suramar, and you know, some of you are probably wondering, well, what's that about? You know, Stormheim, and what is that? Tell me about that. I have exciting news. They actually have little hook guns that you can have in your inventory. I do believe it's in your inventory. And what you can do is you can right-click on these little hooks on top of buildings and rocks, and you can fly up there. It's actually pretty cool. So you zip line from place to place. And they sort of have that at Highmountain, but again, I just would not really recommend it that much. It's just when you go to Highmountain, man, I cringe really badly. So what's next? What else is new? What has Legion offered this time? So we're talking about these maps and parts of the gameplay during the map, whatever, cool. But let's get to the real juicy bits of what Legion is doing that makes the game really good. So you probably did hear that they released artifacts, which are these weapons that you get to have and then sort of build along the way. So what are these artifacts? Depending on your class, you actually get to pick an artifact, and with this artifact, you do a particular special ability effect. So take me, for example. I'm a prot warrior, and one of my abilities is, well, first I have a sword and shield. And my shield, the sword doesn't do anything, mind you, but what the shield does is that I press a button, and it allows it so that it's called the Scale of Nathalion or something, or Deathwing, and it breathes out fire in a cone. And that's pretty good because I have a lot of conal attacks. I have Shockwave, I have Revenge, I have Thunderclap, and now I have that to my arsenal, which is pretty nice. But also, when I'm raising that shield and I'm spraying out that fire, I can also use my defensive abilities, which is pretty nice. And there's a whole bunch of other ones that, depending on your class and what you pick. And don't worry. Listen, if you're listening to this video and you said, oh, well, do I get to just choose the one weapon? Fear not, friends. You don't. You get to pick all of them. So you have to complete a quest line for one particular set of artifacts. And then once you're done with that, you can, like, keep going. You can actively get these artifacts. Now, getting the artifacts are really easy, actually. You know, you can get all of your class weapons in a heartbeat. But what really makes it the challenge of making these artifacts really good is being able to upgrade it at this forge in your class hall. And what this does is that it gives you certain buffs. Like for me, I'm picking stamina and armor and ignore pain. And you keep going until you try to upgrade it, and more until you get these like ultimate passive abilities. And you'll see, because when you go into it, there'll be like this little dragon golden thing around the circle, and it's like a super ability that you have. But the kicker to that is that it's not easy. When you're actually gaining this thing called artifact power, which is used as sort of a currency or experience points for your artifacts, you'll soon realize that you start spending it, and then you spend it more and more, and then you'll notice it starts to get a lot more expensive, way more expensive to get these artifact powers. So it does take you a little bit of time to be able to get that. Holy crap, that's nuts, because now that what that means is there's always something for you to do to gain that artifact power. And it's not like what I did during stream is from like what, level 101 to 110 in 12 hours. This time it's gonna take a while to get every single upgrade imaginable. Not to mention, you can also, and oh my god, there's still more? Yes sir, there is. You can increase your abilities in your or rather I should say certain abilities. You can increase certain abilities of your upgrades in your artifact by collecting what was it, those little minor traits or whatever. It's these things that you pick up and then you socket it into an aspect. Like for mine, I have iron, blood, and I have not unlocked fire yet, but I will get fire as soon as possible. And this makes it so that it kind of buffs one area of your skill tree. So for now, I think I have ignore pain increased a little bit, and I have some armor or stamina or something. And you can only have 3 slots, so you have to choose carefully of which ability you want to upgrade. Not all of them are really bad, but you do kind of want to start going to what you're going to do the most. Like if I wanted to do damage as a tank, I probably want to get those little upgrade trinket things that you put in, and I put it into revenge or shield slam or whatever. But if you're like me that wants to do his job and say, well, I do really need to get tanky, then you'll get armor, then you'll get ignore pain, and those little upgrades that buff it even further. So let's say that you cap them, that you have 3 out of 3 possible upgrades. When you insert that ability, that trait in there, now the cap is increased by 1. So I really like that. That means now you get to mix and match and play and try to gain this thing. There's a lot to do with artifacts, so that's actually really cool. Your class hall, I won't go into it too much. It's like your garrison, except a lot better. Go ahead and experience it for yourself, because I don't want to take up too much of you guys' time. And then let's go ahead and talk about the little bit of the finer things in Legion that I really enjoy. The difficulty of dungeons is actually pretty relevant. Like, I went into a normal dungeon, and it's really not to be effed around with. It actually takes a little bit of time, and, you know, the mobs are actually a little bit harder, and you can't just go guns blazing as you did the other expansions ago. Now it's really difficult to be able to, like, kill every single person on time. You gotta probably CC a little bit. You have to hit them. And granted, you can overcome this challenge and say, what, normal? But I've yet to see heroic and mythic, but from what I understand, those things are absolutely, like, really difficult challenges. Like, you can't just go guns a-blazing. So I really like the fact that they took the time to add that difficulty and, you know, sort of the different mechanics. The only thing I have to say, though, is that I really wish bosses could have a little bit more variety, faces, so to speak. and to become a little harder. It does become a little bit easy at some point when you start upgrading and you start becoming a little bit more powerful. But then again, that's why Heroic and Mythic exists. So maybe, perhaps I just don't really know quite yet. But that's the amazing thing. So let me give this advice also. When you're 110, oh my god, you're not done. You are not done, and I love that about Legion. You are not done when you are 110. You have to now collect these Pillars of Creation. So what that is that each zone has these like super powerful items that help the world, and that's how I'm going to explain it. And then you try to kill the boss with the quest. So you get these quests, and then it eventually leads to the dungeon. So now that purpose of going into the dungeon is established, and you go in, and then you take that Pillar of Creation, and then you collect it to your arsenal for whatever reason. At some point, they're gonna like have use for them. I don't think there's a reason why we collect them already or how we're gonna affect it, but at some point it'll be relevant. I don't have that information currently for you. What's another thing? PvP. I have not played PvP, but from what I understand, it actually is pretty cool. That's all I can say. I really don't PvP that much, but if you guys want my opinion on PvP, I'll be sure to play a little bit of that and then get on down and dirty with that. But you do level up, so to speak, in PvP, and then you start earning these talents and abilities, whatever in there, and that's actually pretty cool. What's another one? So I want to go ahead and wrap this up a little bit. I mean, I can go on about World of Warcraft Legion as far as I could, but all I have to say is that it really is a successful expansion to its predecessors, like the true, like the vanilla Burning Crusade, and maybe Wrath of the Lich King. That one's a little but the other two expansions with what Mist of Pandaria, Warlords of Draenor, they're not as good as these, because now you have something to do constantly. It's filled to the brim of every single thing you can do. I mean, hell, I could just sit here and talk about this all day, about, you know, the things you do in Dalaran with the sewers. That's actually really, like, woo, it's crazy. You get to fly around in your class hall. You get to teleport places, whatever. Change up your appearance of your artifacts, but as soon as you unlock them, I can keep going and going. But why it's so successful is because Blizzard really did take the time to create a good challenge. They added a good story to it too. Like, everything as of now is just solid, absolutely solid from start to finish. When you hit 110, you can't say, oh, you've run out of content, because now you have your artifacts to worry about. Now you do your upgrades in, like, your forge, let's say, and that actually takes days for you to get. So you can't necessarily select the things as you do in your garrison last time, which hit or miss, I guess. But what makes this a little bit better is that you also get your garrison dudes. Like, you get the people that you recruit and you send them off the missions. And again, the same thing as your Warlords of Draenor mission thing. So, but they didn't add such a huge emphasis on that either. It's more about the artifacts. You know, when you actually collect that artifact, that's the bread and butter of this game. Like, that's why it's so important, because you're constantly upgrading, you're constantly trying to experiment. Now you're doing a full-time build. Oh, one last thing, actually, you know, before, and then I will end the video, I promise you. There is something I do want to point out in Suramar that I really enjoy. So without spoiling anything, I'm just gonna say this much as best as I can. At some point, you do collect an army, and I say that in air quotes because you get, like, what, at most 10 dudes or whatever, and you try to essentially dungeon crawl. So you're commanding to follow and attack or whatever. It's not overly detailed like a Diablo type deal, but it's a pretty cool thing that you actually get to go down and down and down as much as you can, try to get as much treasure. By the way, there's treasure all around the map, just throwing that out there. And elites. But anyway, getting back on point here, and you do control this army, and you try to get through it as much as possible without all of your dudes dying, or if you want that chest, you have to sacrifice 5 of those dudes, you get more of them, and there's this dungeon crawling aspect that I don't think it's the forefront of Legion and why it's being so successful right now, but I do have to say, wow, Blizzard, way to go, way to create a new gameplay aspect where you get to get that army, and then you try to get as much loot as possible. Not even necessarily as a full-time dungeon, but it's like a different dungeon this time. Now you're actually controlling what each person is doing, and you're trying to prevent the ones that are fighting for your side to run away. And you need to get those guys because they do a lot of damage as a unit, and you try to make sure they're not dying. And again, like I said, not the forefront, but when you experience the game for yourself, when you get to that quest, go ahead and leave a comment in the description and tell me your experience about that. I frankly really enjoyed it a lot. It just was fantastic. I just like Legion. Like, Legion is actually good, but I do have a concern if it will fall prey like Warlords of Draenor did. And I'm crossing my fingers that it doesn't, because there's a lot to be offered here. There is a lot of potential. Now, listen carefully, Blizzard. Now, it is your job to take it step by step. Whatever feedback of people are saying, hey, we should add this, we should do that, doing everything on a grander scale, do it. Because that's how you get your players back. And from what I understand, and this isn't factual, mind you, I heard this, I haven't looked into it, but you can always look into it if you want. Say I'm right, say I'm wrong. They got their pretty good amount of subscribers back. Like, currently, like 12 million they got back. And that's pretty good. That's a healthy step in the right direction. Now the most important thing is that they maintain it by keeping it. By keeping players actively engaged and busy. And they will with artifacts, but then rating's also going to come out. So you have to constantly add now. Now you have to flood it with even more content as much as possible during these patches. They are going to do Karazhan. So thank God for that, but let's hope that that is a successful raid and it's not just some fluff that they're just going to add in saying, oh, remember Burning Crusade? Remember Karazhan? We did this. This is so cool. If they can just avoid those kind of distractions and detractors, then we'll be totally good. Then we finally have the expansion that we've been wanting as a fan base for so long. You know, I keep going with the artifacts maybe, or, you know, have it so that you can stylize it and not transmog it. I mean, like actually change it up so it can be an axe or a shield that is a little bit different. And that's a little minor complaint, mind you. But there's a lot to be had here. So if you had a subscription for World of Warcraft Legion, go ahead and play it. I promise you, you won't be disappointed because I'm not. A couple of my friends aren't. They definitely really enjoy what's going on in Legion. And overall, Legion gets the A. They do. They get that A, almost an A+, but there are those little things like Highmountain and, you know, there are things here and there that aren't so impressive, but things like Suramar really bring it back. It's like, oh my goodness, so good. So good. It's amazing, and I love it, and it's great. So, anyway, that's just my impression of Legion right now. That's my personal experience with Legion. There's just an abundant amount of things to do with World Quests. And again, I promise you I would end this video, and I'm going to do that now. So just go play it for yourself, because I know I can keep going. But you should totally go play World of Warcraft Legion. You should. You really, really should. With that being said, guys, thank you. My name is Spidevil. If you liked what you heard, hit me up on Facebook and Twitter and all that are nonsense. Be sure to support the channel by either liking or subscribing, and I will see you guys next time.